Welcome into the Paul Farrington Show. Happy New Year from the Paul Farrington Show. Paul joined by Jack Weinberger, Robert Ziggy Ziegler in California, an upset Robert Ziggy Ziegler, and Zach Bloomquist.
I don't want to be here, Paul.
The best executive producer in the game. No one wants to be here after that horror show in Minneapolis last night on New Year's Eve.
Packers bettors like myself love to be here.
It was just a horrible nightmare game in Minnesota. Jordan Love fulfills his right as a Packer quarterback to beat the living hell out of the Vikings in a monumental game, a monumental night game most of the time, 33-10. And it started off good with the early 3 and out. I'm sitting there watching the game going, all right, let's go. Let's see what Jaren Hall has. And very quickly, you could see that there was a different Packer defense that showed up last night. And Jaren Hall just had nothing in his bag that could make up for it. Nick Mullins was horrible too. It's just a terrible, terrible night of Minnesota football. And watching it, I thought the most impressive thing for the Packer defense, they were again, it's exactly what we said would happen. We knew that for the Packer defense, which has been struggling like crazy with Joe Barry lately, would find a way to get pressure on the Vikings quarterbacks, make them make mistakes like they have all season long. Every time I looked up, it's like Preston Smith or Quay Walker, whoever it was in the backfield making a huge play, forcing a turnover. And then Jordan Love was really sensational most of the night, making guys like Bo Melton look like Devontae Adams out there. Just a tough game for the Vikings. And for Packers fans, you're probably going to the playoffs now. You're probably going to beat the Bears and go to the playoffs.
I mean, this is 2 weeks in a row this Packers offense scores 30-plus points. Looked like an absolute machine. 470 yards of offense, 28 first downs. Love's looking like Aaron Rodgers out here. Aaron Jones goes over the century mark on the ground.
He was great, Aaron Jones.
Fantastic.
I hate when people say running backs don't matter because when you see the impact that, like you, Zach, when you see the impact a healthy Aaron Jones has on this Packers offense, it's night and day. Like he was carving up Minnesota all night.
And now you get another chance. Last year, you're at home, divisional opponent, for a chance to go to the playoffs, and you screw it up with Aaron Rodgers. Now, same deal. You host the Bears, divisional opponent, chance to go to the postseason. Let's see if Jordan Love can deliver, and I bet you he does.
Ziggy, how disappointing was it out in California?
You know, during the game, I was out brief with my family, caught most of the game, but I walked by a Packers bar in the first quarter before I'd gotten a chance to check the score. And you as a Vikings fan walking past the Packers bar, there's a certain thing, your atmosphere you're hoping to pick up.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, everyone was like celebrating, ordering another round, having a great time. So I just text you like, should I check the score? And you say, enjoy one more second apiece, Ziggy, before you get home.
Yeah.
So I'm able to catch the second quarter, most of the second half, and it's just, I don't know. I knew that starting Jaren Hall in a must-win game was dangerous. I didn't expect Aaron Jones to play so well. I didn't expect the Packers receivers. It seems like every single one of them's injured, and they bring in someone new off the practice squad, and Jordan Love makes them look good. I didn't expect Justin Jefferson to only get 60 yards. It was tough.
Jaden Reed was awesome last night, too. He finished with 6 catches for 89 yards and 2 touchdowns.
And a half, right?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, and a half.
The nail in the coffin was when we turned it over at the end of the second quarter, right before halftime. 30 seconds left? The Vikings had the ball on their own 45, and somehow the Packers score a touchdown before half with the Jaden Reed touchdown run, where, of course, he barely gets in with 8 seconds left in the half. And that to me is when the night went from, okay, maybe we could try and claw our way back in here. We're probably going to go Mullins in the second half. That touchdown is when I looked at the score and went, oh no, we're heading towards one of these classic Packer-Viking beatdown games, which I'm so accustomed to seeing. You know the formula when you see it. And the entire night from there on out was just tough to watch. But Jordan Love, we'll talk about him for a second. He was 24 for 33, 256 yards, 3 touchdowns, 125.3 passer rating. The entire night watching him, other than that first drive, he just looked so comfortable. And he was making many impressive throws. He had the first touchdown of the game to Reed, relaxed off his back foot like he always does, threads it through a couple safeties, and Reed walks into the end zone, had a big pass to Melton with pressure in his face. It was one of those performances from Jordan Love where I sat back and started thinking, man, if this Packer team does get in, they're going to be a tough out for the Dallas Cowboys, who would be their likely opponent in the first round.
Yeah, he also ran in a touchdown.
He was great.
No
He was
turnovers,
awesome.
fantastic. The most impressive thing to me also is once that Steelers-Seahawks game went final and the Steelers beat Seattle, this became a massive, massive game for both Minnesota and Green Bay. And they go on the road at night. And I know you're starting with Jaron Hall and you have that whole quarterback carousel. I understand that. But it's a night game on the road against a team who has everything to play for. And you go in and absolutely destroy them on both sides of the ball. Defense was great. Offense was great. Love looked amazing. It was super impressive. And look what happened when, a decently balanced offensive team goes into Dallas like Detroit just did. It's a winnable game. So if Green Bay can play like they've been playing offensively, I'm not totally shocked if they give Dallas a game in Dallas. I mean, Green Bay's a team who mauled Detroit.
Yeah, and whatever you want to say about Joe Barry, Matt LaFleur will always come in with an intelligent offensive game plan. And it feels like as time has gone on, him and Jordan Love have both gotten a lot more comfortable with each other. Right, the open of the middle of the field that had a really hard time being open for Jordan Love at the beginning of the season. He's completing passes there. Love and the receivers have gotten more comfortable. LaFleur has a better idea of what he can and can't ask Love to do. The relationship has just improved so much from the first few games of the season. And you can really see it in games like this.
Oh, it's terrible. I was watching guys run wide open in the middle of the field. It's like I was watching the Giants playoff game last season. Love would drop back to pass, and it's like, all right, who's going to be running wide open this time?
I mean, it really is fitting, though, that, like we said in the last episode, that the Green Bay, Wisconsin, being the drunkest city in the country, once again, gets to celebrate hard on New Year's Eve.
How do the Vikings let that happen when Kirk Cousins blows the horn to start the game shirtless with his chain?
We wasted the greatest goal in the history of the Minnesota
best opening
Vikings.
we've had. The best opening we've had, and we just go and get murdered by our arch rivals.
Lambeau will be rocking this weekend.
Oh,
too.
with the Bears coming into town. Yeah.
And it's funny you bring up the Bears because Jordan Love, if he were put up these same stats on the Bears, would be the Bears' all-time leading passer single season in yards and touchdowns. He has 3,843 passing yards and 30 touchdowns. Bears' record is 3,838 and 29.
Wait, let me ask you guys something. After a game like that from the Packer defense, they had 4 sacks. I was going through their games. They haven't had 4 sacks in a really long time. We said Tommy DeVito didn't get to him once. This is a guy who's sacked 7 times a game in his other starts. For the Packer defense to perform the way they did, and remember, Jair Alexander was suspended by the team for this game too. He's had his ups and downs this season. But with the way the Packer defense looked last night, was that more of a Packer defense showing up or the Vikings offense and Mullins and Hall being completely inept to you?
Well, last week, look, the Green Bay scored 33 points on Carolina, had a good offensive showing, and yet the Panthers offense and Bryce Young was able to go and hang 30, and that was a bit alarming because a team who's a playoff hopeful, you don't really want to see them allow 30 points to Bryce Young and the Panthers. So I look at this definitely more as a bounce back type statement game for the Green Bay defense. To go on the road in a night game like this, and I don't care who's playing quarterback, but to hold them to 10 points and win the game by 20.
I think we had 81 yards in the first half.
I think that's super impressive.
Yeah.
For a defense who's been struggling as well, I think it's an impressive game on the defensive side.
The important thing for Joe Barry and the Packers defense is going to be to play a complete game. He likes those Fangio systems, right, which are generally good at limiting explosive plays. And while he got made fun of a lot for this, he was right that in the Panthers game, they played really well until the last 7 minutes. And then they just gave up 2 really awful drives. And Justin Fields is the kind of quarterback who can make you pay if you're not careful. But there's enough talent, and the coaching, I think, is good enough that if they can just come in with a plan and execute it for 60 minutes rather than 53, they'll be all right.
You say it all the time, Jack. And watching the game, it stands out very clearly for the Vikings in this one. But it's always shocking just how bad an offense can be when you have nothing from the quarterback. And that's it's obvious, Ben. It's the most important position in sports. But for the Vikings, without Kirk Cousins, these guys. It's the same thing with all the quarterbacks they've had this year. They're slightly inaccurate enough where it's the balls are ricocheting off people's hands and they get intercepted, and then Green Bay takes advantage of them and blows the game open. Once Kirk went down, the season basically ended. That's why I'm not destroyed from this loss, because I never saw this team having much of an opportunity to go anywhere with who they have under center. It was just like, come on, really? We're gonna lose 33-10, 30-3 in the third quarter.
It's crazy what the impact a quarterback can make. I mean, I said if you put Patrick Mahomes on the Steelers, they're a contender. You put Rudolph on the Chiefs, they're probably 7-10.
Yeah.
It's all the difference in the world.
So going into, sorry, Ziggy, you want to say something?
I don't know, Paul. You talk about competitive rebuilds. And when I heard the Packers were doing a competitive rebuild this year, I got excited because us Viking fans know what a competitive rebuild is. It's a lot of mediocrity with an aging quarterback and not having a whole lot of playoff success. You have a little bit, but nothing crazy. But apparently when the Packers do a competitive rebuild, they're bad for 3 weeks. And then their young quarterback suddenly throws for 4,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, and looks like a top 10 quarterback in the league. I don't understand it, man. I don't get it.
How ridiculous is it? The Packers, a few weeks back, they got destroyed by somebody. Was it Tampa Bay at home?
They lost to Tampa at home.
Yeah, Tampa at home beat them, and we're sitting here writing off Green Bay and blah, blah, blah. And now it's week 18, and they're playing a home game where they'll be favored to go to the playoffs.
Against the franchise they own.
Yeah, to go to the playoffs.
Yeah, against their son.
To go to the postseason.
No, they're going to, what we said last week, they're going to go to the playoffs. It's blue sky franchise, and it laid out nicely for Green Bay.
Like, I do believe that inexperience could play a bit of a negative role in going to Dallas, going to San Francisco, that playoff path.
No, but this season is now a monumental success.
Going to the postseason is, yes, monumental success.
If they beat Chicago and they end the season knocking out the Vikings, beating the Bears, and then going to the
finishing
playoffs.
Over 500, going to the playoffs.
Yeah. And then next season, they're eyeing the division against Detroit, who they also just blew out a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Horrible. I'm looking at the numbers from the game right now. 470 to 211 in yards, 28-13 in first downs. Time of possession, they doubled up Minnesota. I mean, I stopped watching in the middle of the third quarter.
And this was a road game.
Yeah.
Like, this was a road game.
Tirico was like, it's a Packer night in Minneapolis. I just shut the TV off. I was like, all right, like, Happy New Year.
Yeah, this is a must-win playoff game for the Vikings, and we're hearing "Go Pack, Go" loudly at the beginning before the Packers have done anything.
In the second quarter, we didn't have a completed pass in the first quarter. It's just
and Jordan Love has now had several of these games recently where you watch him and he's a very good quarterback.
No, you like the way he performed last night. I'm not gonna go be crazy and clickbait say top 10 quarterback, but he had a performance last night where he was a top 16 quarterback in the league.
Yeah,
like he looked like a better than average quarterback last night, and that's terrifying to see because you can see what's coming if they're able to surround him with better weapons.
Not much around him. I haven't heard of that guy, Bo Melton. I've never heard of him. I saw what he have 120.
Yeah, they brought him off the practice squad this week.
They're just throwing bombs to him, and he's wide open in the middle of the field.
I see Bo Melton 110 yards or whatever. I'm like, who is this dude?
Sean Clifford came in and one throw for 37 yards.
Yeah, I saw.
It was just like anyone could come in. Yeah, it was just a Packer day. Horrible. But we're used to it. Next year. That's our motto, Ziggy. You know it. On to next season. Have to watch the Packers against the fucking Cowboys. I'm sorry for cursing now. But all right, we'll wrap it up here. We'll have a Week 18 preview show, and with that, a lot to talk about because your Steelers are alive and well right now, Jack. Somehow,
right there,
with a playoff berth on the line. Zach's Dolphins.
We need Zach's
fighting for the 2 seed or a wild card position where it could get shaky if you wind up going to KC or whoever it would be. And the Vikings, obviously, the Vikings are still alive. We positioned ourselves
not out yet.
To beat Detroit and then what do we need? We need the Cardinals to beat the Seahawks, Bears to beat the Packers, and the Panthers to beat the Buccaneers, or the Falcons to beat the Saints. So we're done. We're done. But all of us technically still alive going into Week 18. Thanks again for listening to this episode. We'll see you for the preview.